So today I think we have a great topic. I don't know if many of you have heard about it, but Alcosan, like our municipalities, has been doing a lot of work throughout their system. And today we're going to have a presentation on the plant expansions that they are doing. And this will be particularly important to the CSO communities as we get into the consent orders that are rapidly going to be upon us. So with that today, from Alcosan, we have Kim Kennedy. Kim is the Director of Engineering and Construction. She's had that position since 2018. Kim has worked in engineering consulting industry for 20 years, and she's a licensed professional engineer here in Pennsylvania. And also with her today is Mike Lichta. Mike is the Manager of Planning and Regional Conveyance Department at Alcosan. He's held that position since 2008. Mike has over 25 years experience in water and wastewater projects, and he is also a licensed professional engineer. Many of us know these two, and they're well respected in our field. So without further ado, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll ask everybody to please mute yourself if you can. That way we don't hear any background noise and allow our presenters to do it. And then when we have the question and answer session, we'll ask you to raise your hand, and then we'll call on you to do that. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Like Dave said, Mike and I are going to talk about the plant expansion and some of the other activities associated with the Clean Water Plan that we've been advancing here at Alcosan. So I thought I would start with just a general Alcosan update. I think, as many of you know, the modified consent decree was entered last May, coming up on exactly a year. So that started our timeline for compliance with the obligations in the order. Last October and November, we submitted two fairly significant deliverables to the agencies: the basis of design report, which was kind of the wrap up of the preliminary planning phase, and it took the design of the outside conveyance system to about 20%. And then in November, we submitted revisions to the modified consent decree report. We got approval from the regulatory agencies in March. They had 6 months to review it, and they took 6 months, but we did get the approval in March, which is great. It just advances the efforts and the implementation of the work that we'd already been doing. While that report was being reviewed, we went through the procurement process of hiring a tunnel program manager. So that was awarded in December. The fee was negotiated in January, and they got notice to proceed in February. So we've had a couple months now with the tunnel program manager setting out our path forward for the next 15 years. And then also we put out the RFQ for the Ohio River Tunnel design package. So those qualifications are due next Friday, May 21st. We'll expect those here, and we'll start to review them. And then years ago, in 2016, we started the plant expansion work. We've now got 4 plant expansion construction projects underway, which I'll give you some updates on, and then one that's already been completed. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you guys know that the Clean Water Plan components are generally split into these 4 categories: the regionalization, the controlling the source, and green infrastructure components. Those are not the 2 topics we're going to concentrate on today. The other 2 components, the wastewater treatment plant expansion, and then the adaptive management and increasing the conveyance and storage capacity in our collection system. That's what Mike and I are going to focus on for today's update. But not to ignore that there are two other very important sister components to what we're going to focus on today. And then just, you know, big picture, what did the modified consent decree do? It bought us 10 more years. We went down to the interim solution based on the affordability limits. But what's important to note here is everything we're talking about, you know, our deadline is the 2036 deadline, but there will be post-construction monitoring beyond that 2036, and then another, you know, set of measures to get us to the full compliance. Okay, so the treatment plant expansion, lots of construction happening down here at the plant. How will we get there? How will we get to being able to treat 250 million gallons per day now to 600 million gallons per day by 2029? And this is generally big picture how we're going to get there. So we are increasing our secondary treatment plant capacity to get full secondary treatment up to 295 million gallons per day. 2 new final settling tanks, a new chlorine contact tank, and then we're building a river wall about 1,100 feet long to kind of buy us some additional real estate for the construction of those 2 tanks. Then we have this CSO bypass project, and it will convert our existing chlorine contact tank into a wet weather only disinfection tank. And then we're going to move our outfall. Our current outfall is to the southern end of this tank. We are moving for hydraulics reasons. We are moving our what will be outfall 002 to the northern end of this tank. And then this will be our everyday dry weather flow outfall. This is a brand new outfall all the way at the northern end of the plant. We then need additional headworks facilities to bring our headworks capacity between the existing one and the new one up to 600 million gallons per day. We need to have another pump station, and then obviously some new primary tanks. So we can't do all of that at once. We simply have to obviously prioritize operations and maintaining our compliance at all times. So we've broken this plant expansion down into final design packages, and this is the way they look. So package 1, which is under construction right now, is what I described as the 2 new final settling tanks, and then this new chlorine contact tank, and the new building to house the sodium hypochlorite and sodium bisulfite blowers for aeration, and some defoamer for the outfall control. So that was awarded last year, and the contractor got on site about August. Then we also need to plan for the power associated with all of these new improvements. So we have it's going to be called the electrical system upgrades. It is going to be bid within the next 2 weeks, anticipating a July award. And this is really focused on getting in a new 5 kV substation and switching off a lot of loads. There's a lot of duct bank reroutes in order to make way for new tankage. So it's really like a look ahead project and clearing the pathways that we need. So that's going to be bid here in the next 2 weeks, package 2. Package 3 was actually comprised of 4 of these smaller projects, but they're they're small, but very important. The first one, putting flow meters in the headers, the 54-inch headers of our raw sewage pumps, because we need a way to measure the flow. Right now, we measure the flow as the flow leaves the primaries into the aeration tanks. We needed a way to measure the flows while this is all under construction, and we also need total flow in the future. Only the flow that's going to get full secondary treatment is going to go this way. the bypass flows are going to go to the chlorine contact tank. So in any case, this is a pretty important project. And I would say it's about halfway through construction right now. I've got some great pictures that I'll show you in a couple slides. We had to, okay, so the second package is increasing our internal recycle capacities for our process. So that RAS stands for Return Activated Sludge. That package is also under construction, and it's increasing. You see these pump stations here in orange, totally gutting them, increasing the size of the pumps. And this is a process improvements project to make sure that as the flows increase, we're able to return the flows to maintain compliance and proper process. The third one is complete. That's the temporary hypo. So we had to actually build a new, add to some additional existing storage tanks and put some robustness in, because the sodium hypochlorite that's stored right here now along this number 3 is our primary means of disinfection. They used to be up here, and all of that had to be demolished in order to make way for this work, which I also have some photos to show you. So this is complete, and that's how we're performing our disinfection right now from sodium hypochlorite storage tanks that are right there. And then the fourth one, we have an effluent flushing water system that all of the systems use, so that we're not pulling off of potable water when we don't need it for certain processes. And we can't expand the plant without expanding our internal infrastructure for the needs that we have. So that's in design right now. It's just beyond 30%. But again, it's an important part of bringing everything up to speed as we increase the capacity of our plant. So here's package 4. That's the CSO related bypass. That's how we're going to split the flow from the 295 that goes to full secondary treatment to the bypass that only gets the grit, screenings, and primary treatment, and then disinfection. The East Headworks was just awarded in April, so we're still finalizing those contracts with the General Electrical, HVAC, and plumbing contractors. But that'll be a 360 million gallons per day Headworks facility. So between our existing facility right here for screenings and grit and this facility, that takes us to the full 600 million gallons per day per capacity for our grit and screenings. Then we're going to have to put out a package to handle our solids. Don't want to get in too much detail, but right now we co-settle the sludge. We can't do that when we're at those higher capacities. So we're going to be putting in centrifuges that will thicken the sludge. And right now we are working with our program manager to do some pilot testing. And we're going to probably start pilot testing this fall to understand the performance criteria of the centrifuges, thickening centrifuges that are out there. In order to build 2 new primary tanks, we have to relocate the lab and industrial waste facility. So I'll show you some renderings of the parking garage and the lab and industrial waste facility. I think it was important for us to stay within our campus. So we looked at some other property for the lab, but it makes sense for the lab to be on campus. But in order to do that, since we're completely space limited, we are repurposing our parking lot this is for our union personnel to be the lab, and then we're going to build a parking garage. And then once that's built, then we're able to demo these 2 buildings and put the 2 additional primary sedimentation tanks in. And then last, but certainly not least, is the wet weather pump station that's associated with the Ohio River Tunnel. That'll be rated for 120 million gallons per day. And those are the 9 packages that'll get us to 600 million gallons per day of treatment by 2029. And I guess pretty quickly spoke to where we are on these 9 packages, but this is kind of shows you the designs are complete for the north end, and that's ongoing. We are 100% complete for the electrical, and we'll be entering the bid phase here in a week or two. Temporary hypo's done and operational. The flow meters are getting there, and I'll show you some great photos on that. RAS is, the design is complete. Kukosing is the general contractor on that, and we're just getting started and ramping up. We're going to be doing some pretty intense bypass pumping in order for them to be able to work on those pump stations. The effluent flushing water is getting there. CSO bypass, we just passed the 30% where we did a value engineering session, and we're about to kind of come to conclusion on some of the options for the value engineering. East Headworks is complete. It's a very major milestone. It was just awarded in April, so we're still working through the contracts. WAS got punted a little bit. We thought we'd put that out this year, but because we want to do some pilot testing on those thickening centrifuges, I pushed that out to the first quarter of next year for the RFQ for the design. And then the parking garage got awarded in March. The design for the lab and environmental compliance facility will be ready, but we can't bid those both at the same time because they both need to be built on that parking lot. So we're advancing the design for the environmental compliance facility, but then we're just going to pause that and get our parking garage built. And then the last 2 pieces that still will need to go out for design are those 2 new primary sed tanks and then the wet weather pump station. So this is the plant expansion and all of the work that we've advanced. See here. Okay. So this is actually a new report. I just showed this to the board last month. This was part of the board meeting, and I'll be showing this quarterly, but I thought it would be interesting to share with this group that we've already awarded $232 million worth of work associated with the plant expansion. This is all new because in order for this report to be generated, the contracts have to be entered, and this is pretty fresh, so I just put these in by hand, but it does show that we really are advancing the plant expansion and taking those dates that are stipulated in the consent decree very seriously, and I think we've made some great progress. So the biggest one so far is that north end with just over $100 million. And so here I just have a couple more slides with some photos. If you've ever volunteered for the open house or been down at the plant, you would have remembered those really large sodium hypochlorite storage tanks all the way at the north end. So they're all gone and it's all cleared. And this is going to make way for the 2 new final sed tanks and then a really long new chlorine contact tank along the river with our outfall, which will be all the way here at the northern end of our property. We also had to take out 11 mooring cells. Those mooring cells were old railroad mooring cells that were, for lack of a better word, gifted to us when we bought the property 20 years ago. So we never used them and we didn't need them, so they had to be demoed, which made for some interesting work in the river. And then this is the flow meter that I was telling you about. So this is the long 54-inch riser pipe that it's the only time the flow is pumped at the main sewage pump station at our plant. And from here on out, it flows by gravity. So these we have 6 of these giant risers, and they were encased in concrete. So the contractor has to chip away at this concrete in order to install these 54-inch flow meters and build an access platform in order to get to them, since there was no reason to have an access platform in the middle of the riser pipe. So this is what it looks like once it's installed. So it's slow work, but it's a very important project. And then this is our rendered version of what the East Headworks facility will look like. So right now, this is just an empty parking lot. We had demoed our old operation and maintenance building a couple years ago, and since then it's just been an empty parking lot. But this is where the new East Headworks facility is going to go. These will be the new grit tanks. So between our existing screenings and grit tanks and this new facility, that will get us up to the 600 million gallons per day. And this is kind of a nice rendering of the way it'll look after it's built. So we had to go through some pretty rigorous permitting with the city because of the square footage of this building. It took us into like a whole nother permitting requirements, but we made it through, and we're looking forward to getting these contracts executed and issuing notice to proceed for the East Headworks. And then here is our, this is what I was talking about with the parking garage and the environmental compliance facility. So as you enter the plant, here's the security station, which many of you might be familiar with. And just to the left of that is where our union personnel park. In the future, it will be a parking garage that you see to the left as you enter the plant, as you go through security. And then behind that will be our lab building, forever known as the environmental compliance facility, because the lab will be on the first floor, and then our industrial waste personnel will be on the second floor, and a third floor of offices. And here is a rendering. This is a rendering of the lab. And this is a rendering, even though it's a little fuzzy, of the parking garage. So the parking garage was awarded. The general contractor got notice to proceed last Friday. So that is proceeding pretty well. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Mike now to talk about the work outside of the plant that's been progressing.
Thanks, Kim. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I just want to, I have a few slides here just to kind of go over what we've been up to over the past 3 to 4 years in planning additional facilities outside the fence. Just to mention, we continued planning and value engineering and alternatives analysis. Back in 2017, we hired Wade Trim to develop a basis design report for us to be submitted in 2020. So through that whole process, we've been reworking our alternatives. We've been conducting surge analyses. We've been conducting geotech, additional engineering analyses and costing. So this has been a continual process here. It didn't just stop with the submission of the Clean Water Plan. So you can go on to the next slide. As Kim stated, our basis design report was approved March 30th, 2021. There is a plan for new conveyance tunnels and associated facilities, about 16.4 miles of tunnel, to be precise. Wade Trim came up with some recommendations regarding the size and alignment. We moved some things around to save on costs. We changed some sizing to accommodate surge. So there was some additional analyses performed during the process that culminated in the submission of the report. We also integrated data from the wastewater treatment plant expansion, as well as the grow projects, to optimize the facilities and reduce overflows. Just something on the overflows. We're, by 2036, we're going to be transitioning from roughly 9 billion gallons in a typical year down to 2.7 billion gallons in a typical year. There's some pretty large overflows out there, and these facilities are intended to pick them up and address them. And then what the basis design report did, it provided a basis for us to transition into final design. The tunnel construction, the Ohio River Tunnel, it's broken into 3 segments. And this was part of the basis of design report and the alternatives analysis. It's broken into 3 segments, primarily because when you start getting into mining operations, beyond a certain length, they become sort of inefficient because you end up having to mine and bring the muck back to your launch point. So for these reasons, we came up with 3 packages, roughly 5.5 miles length for each. The Ohio River Tunnel is supposed to begin in 2025. That's the construction. The Allegheny River Tunnel is supposed to follow up in 2028, and the Mon River Tunnel is supposed to begin on or about 2030. New regulators, consolidation sewers, about 25,000 feet of new consolidation sewers, drop shafts, and adits. These adits will bring flow from the drop shafts and connect the flow to the tunnel facility. As I stated previously, we have 3 tunnel segments. They're roughly 5.5 miles in length. These tunnel segments, as you notice there, it's an 18-foot diameter. We were originally proposing a 14-foot diameter, but because of the surge analysis, and when I say surge analysis, basically what you're trying to examine and undertake is a look how air movement travels in your tunnel. There's some pretty large overflows up on the upper Allegheny, and these tend to drive air. Okay, the tunnel, when it's complete, it's going to be delivering, in certain circumstances, upwards of 3,000 MGDs. Okay, it's an 18-foot diameter facility. It's going to be driving air considerably, so we have to plan to manage these airs so you don't create geysers. And so with that, there's going to be a couple tunnel relief outfalls just for emergency purposes to mitigate any surge impacts that you will encounter. The current horizontal alignment has been optimized to obviously reduce the length, and which reduces the cost of the facilities. So we are proceeding into final design with this current alignment. Now, I do want to state that we are undertaking property acquisition at this time, so there might be some minor changes to this alignment as property acquisition proceeds. As I stated, we've done some geotech work. We've done approximately 74 borings in 3 phases along the tunnel alignment. These borings go up to 400 feet deep. And what we're trying to do is basically understand what kind of bedrock we're going to be in. The tunnel at the wastewater treatment plant and the wet weather pump station is going to be roughly 150 feet deep. So we're going to be in sound bedrock for the most part, but we do have to understand where zones of, or where areas of low compressive strength rock are. And this is for, purposes of ensuring that we have adequate safety protocols in place and that we have specified the correct mining equipment. We've also done a pretty exhaustive search of historical borings. We've collected a number of historical borings. You can see those in yellow, the small yellow dots. There's about 1,704 historical borings that we've collected. Some of these are from Route 28, a lot of the bridges, the West End Bridge, for example, West Carson Street. Some of this information is from the North Shore Connector project. So there's a lot of historical boring information that we can use and leverage to complete this work. This is a existing profile. As I stated previously, we're going to be about 150 feet deep at the lower end of the at the wet weather pump station. That's going to be located inside the fence. As Kim stated, that's 120 MGD wet weather pump station. For the most part, we're going to be 40 to 50 feet below our existing interceptor and in sound bedrock. However, we're going to have to construct a number of shafts to connect combined sewer overflows, large combined sewer overflows to this tunnel. So these shafts can be pretty large, and they're going to have to be sized to convey flows that you're going to experience in places like Negley Run. What else can I say? Again, 18-foot diameter. Ranges anywhere from 100 to 100 feet, 150 feet deep, depending on where you're at. We've done some pretty exhaustive geotechnical analyses. We're looking at things like unconfined compressive strength of rock, rock quality designation. We're trying to understand basically what we're going to encounter as the mining progresses. We're going to be going through some areas of claystone while we're tunneling. Those areas can have unconfined compressive strengths of 2,000 to 3,000 psi. So while some of the surrounding sandstones can be 12,000, 13,000 psi. So just looking at certain areas as you're mining, you're going to want to know these type of parameters as you're laying out your geotechnical program. Now we're going to have to, as part of final design, we're going to have to develop a geotechnical baseline report to provide to the tunnel contractor. This is going to be kind of a roadmap for him to conduct this work as beginning in 2025. Tunnel construction, we did look at this with Wade Trim. We're going to also have the tunnel PM and the final designer weigh in this, but we think we're looking at a fully shielded TBM. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's where your TBM is. Your trailing gear has a shield around it, so you don't have a water inflow or rocks or things falling in on you. But we looked at the whether to do a 2-pass, which is basically put a concrete liner following the TBM excavation, or a 1-pass. This is like a bolted segmental liner. And we looked at this from a cost standpoint and from a safety standpoint. We kind of settled on a 1-pass gasketed segment liner. And if you do a search on TBMs, you'll see these. They're basically precast tunnel segments that are set in place as your cutter head and your TBM advance. We're going to have some groundwater control, might have to do some grounding ahead of time. We will have some mined drill and blast adits, particularly Sawmill Run is being considered for this, which you're going to have maybe some ribbing and some rock bolts while you drill and blast. And basically what a drill and blast operation is they set charges in the rock and they mine out, similar to what was done during the existing tunnel construction, the existing Alcosan deep tunnel construction. And for the Chartiers Creek, we're looking at evaluating a TBM versus drill and blast. New regulators going to be approximately 40 new regulators. These range in size from 6 to 12 foot to 28 by 50 foot in diameter, anywhere from 15 to 35 feet deep. Now, some of these are going to get fairly large, and they are often driven by the size of the municipal sewer that is contributory to these regulators. Consolidation sewers, anywhere from 3 to 12 foot in diameter. Total length of consolidation sewers, 25,000 feet. Now, these are some big facilities. I'm not kidding you. These are going to be anywhere from 12 to 55 feet deep, and we're talking about some fairly large facilities here. Drop shafts, approximately 20. We're looking at various types, from baffle to tangential inlet to a vortex insert for smaller combined sewer overflows. Diameters range from 3 to 40 foot in diameter. Some of these larger CSOs are driving the diameter because you have to convey, in the case of Negley Run, you have to convey upwards of 1,000 MGD through this drop shaft. Adits, typically 8 foot finished diameter, range from 50 to 2,000 lineal feet. Here's our preliminary schedule. Ohio River Tunnel, start final design, as Kim stated. We're currently getting qualification packages in. Construction beginning in 2025, concluding in 2029. Allegheny River Tunnel beginning in 2025, construction 2028 to 2034. And the Mon River Tunnel design beginning in 2027, construction 2030 to 2036. We have built in during our negotiations, our consent decree negotiations, we did build in opportunities for adaptive management, which means that flow reduction agreements, changes to municipal loads, municipal peak flows can change the design. Unfortunately, I think for the ORT, I think a lot of this has left the station. A lot of this activity has left the station. But in particularly, when we were negotiating the CD, we were looking for adaptive management to kick in during the Allegheny River Tunnel design as well as the Mon River Tunnel design. And like I stated, adaptive management provisions are continuous and ongoing. We have reporting requirements in our CD, as Tim Prevost has probably stated a number of times. Continued implementation of source control measures, increased focus on green stormwater infrastructure, and then these municipal source reduction agreements that we're trying to achieve by 2025. Now, again, I mean, with the ORT, I think a lot of these sizes are going to be set, but a lot of the adaptive management provisions are intended to kick in for the ART and the MRT design. And with that, thank you.
Thanks, Mike and Kim. It was very informative and just shows how this is really what we've talked about in the past, a regional approach. It's not just work that you're doing or work that municipalities are doing, it's work that we all do together. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions or comments that discussion that individuals have. Jody will help me look here if you want to raise your hand. I know most of you are.
Go ahead, Ryan, if you want to ask your question.
Hi, yeah, my question is for Mike. Thanks for that informative presentation. You had mentioned Chartiers Creek and Sawmill Run.
Mhm.
I didn't see that, maybe I missed it, talking about the timeline of that work. Is that post-2036 work? Could you clarify that?
No, the Sawmill Run and the Chartiers Creek crossings are part of the ORT. So that'll be 2025 to 2029. That was something we negotiated as part of our first phase with the agencies.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, they never found this group to be bashful, so I guess it was a very informative. The part that I think we wanted, somebody has their hand up, Jody?
Yes, it's Ryan again. Go ahead.
I won't be bashful. I really appreciate the opportunity to just get an update. So Kim's presentation ended with a talk about, cost commitments. Are there any like budget projections for the program? Any updates on that?
So we are actually just working through that now. We, as part of the Basis of Design report, got updated costs for the tunneling and consolidation sewers and everything that Mike went over, but I don't think we're in a position. We're held to the affordability threshold and the commitment. So that $2 billion in 2010, it's $2 billion in 2010 numbers. So it's a little bit more than that when you escalate the prices, but we're holding to that budget.
Okay, thanks.
Brian Jensen, go ahead. I see you raised your hand.
Thanks, Jody. Kim and Mike, thanks. Great presentation, very informative. I'm just curious if COVID has had any effect on costs, labor costs, timing. Has the project slowed down at all? I'm just curious about COVID effect on this, and particularly around labor.
So believe it or not, the costs for the North End, which bid right at the beginning of COVID, RAS, and even East Headworks have all been very competitive. And we've been doing a lot of collaboration or just conversations with the airport as their program is ramping up, and they're seeing the same thing. So I think it's a very hungry market, and we have a lot of participation in the bids, and they're very close and they're very competitive. I think what we are seeing though is some supply chain issues for the equipment. So longer lead times, which, we're having to do a lot of negotiating with the contractors once they get on because they can't get the equipment in. But we have not, we do talk about effects of COVID monthly at our, senior management meetings, but so far we've been proceeding full steam ahead because these dates are just so aggressive.
Okay, next we have Glenn Jeanette. Go ahead.
Yes, very good. Is the existing interceptor sewers, is the capacity going to be hydraulically be increased somewhat in regards to plant expansion or the tunnels?
Yeah, I mean, from a pumping standpoint, we're going to be getting more flow out of the existing interceptor. And one of the things we are going to be planning to do is adjust, and that came out of preliminary planning, is adjust some of the tipping gate regulators to send more flow to the treatment plant. One of the things that we're limited here by is the existing capacity, 250 MGDs. Once we get up to 480, okay, we're going to be able to convey a lot more flow through the existing tunnels. And once we make the regulator modifications, you will see a benefit at the downstream POC. So yes.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
But no construction with regards to the existing.
No construction. Okay.
So Glenn, for the purposes of that interim milestone of the 480, I think it's important to note that we're looking at the end of 2025 to be able, because that's when the north end will be done and the CSO bypass and the headworks will be done. So that'll allow us to treat the 480 through our existing pump station.
What was that, Kim? What was the date of that expansion then?
The end of 2025.
And in 2025. Okay, very good. Thank you, Kim.
Just so everybody knows that when the core group has been in negotiations with DEP, this is one of, and Jason and Brad are on the call here today, were one of the factors that was being driven home with DEP, that we didn't want the ratepayers, which are Al-Khasain and municipal, I mean, all the municipal people, that weren't going to pay twice to do something. So there is, that's why we felt this presentation was valuable. And there is a lot of value that is going to be used from these improvements of Al-Khasain is doing that will help the municipalities, especially the CSO communities, during their consent orders that are agreements that are going to be coming out. And we DEP has recognized that, and so that is a major factor that it is going to be involved in. And we segue into that. That's what our subcommittee meetings are really going to focus on later this month, is how these can be used to join in, help municipalities with their due diligence period and design. And Jason and Brad, if you wanted to just comment briefly on that so that we can put a teaser out there to get people to come to our next meeting.
Yeah, and I believe that those subcommittee meetings are next week, and there's a baseline due diligence period that's built into those orders that takes the pre-existing conditions, meaning not today's conditions, but where the municipalities, where the region was prior to implementing planning. Evaluate the efforts that the municipalities have done as part of the administrative consent order, part of the phase 1 consent order and agreement, and reassess where you're at relative to the performance measures in the combined sewer policy. So there's that for lack of a better term, baseline due diligence period that's in there, that part and parcel to compliance with that order will be the regional improvements that Al-Khasain's doing as well. So don't want to get into a lot of that detail today. That's discussion for next week. So obviously there's your teaser to join Three Rivers for the Sanitary Sewer Committee and the Combined Sewer Committee meetings next week.
Yeah, and I guess just on top of that, when you're talking the CSO controls, I mean, the municipal orders are looking at percent capture and looking at trying to improve those percent captures. As both Mike and Kim stated, there's the work that Al-Khasain is going to do, particularly with the plant, is going to provide benefits to all the POCs by being able to treat more through the treatment plant because of that increased capacity. So that, in addition to the tipping gate modifications, are all going to provide those benefits, going along those same lines as well. So that's where it's really important to understand the work that is going on by Al-Khasain and then how that relates back to the municipal requirements in their orders that we'll be talking about this coming week.
Yeah, throughout the process, and as you know, I've only started here in February. Elcasan, their team has been really helpful with us in providing information as we work through the core group, work through the negotiations with the DEP. So we were always in communication with them. Tim, Julia, Kim, Jan, Mike, were all helping us with some input so that we could relay to DEP how those effects would come down to both. So we really have been working hand in hand with them. So we appreciate the partnership that goes on, and I really appreciate the work that the core group of your peers has done to help negotiate this agreement, which is right around the corner. I don't see any other hands. With that, we'll
Showing
just
Rick, hold on, Dave, we have Rick Minsterman raised his hand. Go ahead, Rick.
Hey guys, nice job. Dave, I just wanted to confirm, do we have dates for the committee meetings, for the combined and separates? I wasn't sure if that.
Yeah, I was going to announce those next. They're
all right, great.
We'll do that right now. They're on May 20th. The combined SOARs will be at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and this from 10 a.m. to 11 will be the separate SOARs subcommittee.
And I just want to let everyone know that prior to the meeting, you will be sent the link to participate.
Thanks, Rick. Again, these meetings came about me hearing from communities that obviously we all know that they're two totally and separate, distinct kind of systems, and that way we felt these subcommittees focus just on the issues of combined or separate. So we hope that that's like. So with that, then our next 3WG meeting, our monthly meeting, would be on June 10th. And what I wanted to ask today is, people have provided us, these are your meetings. We're the facilitator. We have ideas. If you have topics that you would like us to cover, please let us know. If there's other topics that you would like us to hear from us on, let us know, and we will looking at possibly having some lunch and learns for our engineering friends here who need their continuing education, and these days a little harder to get, so we want to be able to help you with that. Guess if there's no other questions, again, thanks to Kim and Mike, very informative. And if there's nothing else, we'll end today's meeting because we know everybody's time is valuable. Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. See you on the 20th.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.